This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Notorious Five, Part 6. When we left off, we found out about the aftermath of Angela and Stephanie's rumble in the jungle. We also found out that the Queen Mother wasn't too far off in her assertions that her husband was having an affair. And the next morning, she called her spa to confirm her bi-weekly hair and nail appointments. She let her stylist know that she was ready to switch it up a little bit, so she'd need to make some adjustments in her schedule. In addition to her typical services, she was ready for a haircut and she wanted to dye her hair jet black. Surprised, her stylist said, "You haven't dyed your hair in over a decade. I thought you were embracing your grays, Miss Bella." The Queen Mother said, "Well, I might be back on the market soon. And this go round, I want a younger man." The stylist chuckled, and when she realized that the Queen Mother wasn't, she said, "Well, you're not due for a trim for about another month." The Queen Mother said, "I didn't say anything about a trim. I said a haircut. I want at least 12 inches gone." Shocked, the stylist asked, "Is Mr. Anders okay with that?" The Queen Mother lost it. She said, "This is my hair, and I am grown. And if Mr. Anders wanted to have a say, then he shouldn't have." And then she cut herself off and said, "And you know what? I'll make it easy for you. I'll come there with it already cut, and all you'll have to do is shape it a little. How about that?" And then she hung up the phone on the stylist. She grabbed a pair of kitchen shears and her ponytail and cut it off at the root. Then she went into the master bathroom and looked in the mirror. It was at that moment that everything got real. She'd been growing her hair since the day he asked her to marry him. He loved her hair long. He didn't care how she styled it. As a matter of fact, he liked it natural, slicked back, in a ponytail, and in a fish braid. And that fish braid was in her hands and almost 20 inches long. The Queen Mother thought to herself, that heifer might be younger, slimmer, and lighter than me, but she ain't finer than me on my worst day, hair or no hair. While she was about 25 pounds heavier than she was when they met 45 years ago, she also had given him 4 children, and she was still fine. She wrapped a scarf around her head, went and checked on the children who were taking a nap, and then walked into Donovan's workout room, turned on the television, connected to her YouTube channel, queued up a kickboxing workout, and then tied up her exercise ASICs. Then she said out loud to herself, "I have a feeling I might just have to come out of retirement in a minute." Then she pressed play on the remote and proceeded to beat the hell out of an imaginary individual while participating in the kickboxing exercise video. Meanwhile, at the estate, Pops Andy was reflecting on the interaction that he had with the Queen Mother that morning when she came to pick up the children. She told him that she had no interest in having a conversation with him unless he, 1, initiated it, 2, they had said conversation in person, and 3, he better be ready to spill all. Absent that, she had no words for him. She'd be picking up and dropping the children off to him at the estate, and she was not going to tell him where she was staying. She said, "And don't bother asking anybody else where I'm staying, because if they tell you, I'm going to have your behind in this too." He said, "Well, how am I going to initiate a conversation in person if I don't know where you're staying, Bella? You're picking up and dropping off the kids and you won't come inside." She cut him off and said, "The same way you found a way to rendezvous with little Miss India, you can figure out how to have an honest, open conversation with your soon-to-be ex-wife." And then she pulled off. Pissed, Pops Andy called her phone, and this time she answered. He said, "Bella, we agreed that divorce would not be on the table." The Queen Mother said, "We also agreed to remain faithful. Clearly you changed your mind, and so have I. Don't call me again, Anders. Please don't make me block you." He said, "But how am I supposed to figure out where you're staying, Bella?" She said, "You don't have to know where I'm staying. If you know me, make the effort." Then she hung up on him. A little later, Anya and Ron left the lab. They just submitted their DNA samples. Maribel's nurse put in an order for 24-hour results, so they'd have an answer the following day. After calling and checking to make sure that Angela was okay after her little thriller in Manila with Stephanie, Anya asked Ron to take her to Donovan's house. She needed to talk to her mother. As soon as they pulled up in the driveway, Anya jumped out of the car, ran to the door, and beat on it like the police. When the Queen Mother made it to the door, she was shocked and confused. As soon as she opened it, Anya collapsed into her arms. She looked over her shoulder at Ron, and Ron just shook his head. The Queen Mother led them both into the house, sat them down in the living room, and asked Anya what was going on. That's when Anya signed that she was pregnant and didn't know who the father was. And when Ron said and signed that it didn't matter who the biological father was because he was the father, the Queen Mother was even more confused. She looked at the two of them and quickly decided that she had to get Ron out of there. She needed to talk to her daughter alone. She asked Ron to take the children back to the estate to be with Pops Andy for the night. It took some convincing, but reluctantly he agreed. And when he did, the Queen Mother said, "And do not tell him where I'm staying. Do you understand me?" Not knowing what was going on, Ron definitely knew that tone of voice and that mama look, and he ain't want no problems. So he agreed not to tell Pops Andy a damn thing. As soon as the door closed behind him, Anya told her mother everything. When Ron showed up at the estate with the children, Pops Andy was flabbergasted. He was planning to try to talk to his wife one more time when she dropped the children off that evening, so that he wouldn't have to try to play Inspector Gadget and figure out how he could intercept her somewhere else. Pops Andy sent the children into the kitchen where Mom Joyce was preparing dinner, and then he asked Ron how he ended up with them. Ron told him that he dropped his wife off to have a conversation with the Queen Mother, and she asked him to bring the children. When Pops Andy asked him where he dropped Anya off at, Ron asked Pops Andy, "What is going on, Pops?" Pops Andy said, "My wife's a little angry with me right now. She left and won't tell me where she's staying." Ron said, "Well, she asked me not to tell you. And with all that I've got going on in my marriage, I need all the allies I can get. So please don't make her angry with me too." When Pops Andy asked him what was going on with him and Anya, he told Pops that Anya was pregnant and that for reasons he wasn't at liberty to discuss, she didn't want to keep the baby. Pops Andy said, "Okay, this is too much. You need to tell me where my wife is. I need to be there with her while she's talking to my only daughter." Before Ron could respond, Mom Joyce and Regina came out of the kitchen. Mom Joyce was holding a hot cold bag full of food for Angela. She had her customary dinner, her snacks, and her beverages. And when she asked Pops Andy if he was still going to take them up to the hospital and she would watch the kids, Ron volunteered to do it instead. He said, "I'll take it. Then I'll go back and have a conversation with Anya. And if she wants to talk to you, I'll bring her back here." When Ron left, Mom Joyce went back in the kitchen and Regina looked at Pops Andy and said, "Pops, do you have someone that you can talk to? I'm sure that whatever's going on, the Queen Mother has at least one listening ear. You deserve to have someone who you can talk to, too." Pops Andy said, "So you want me to believe that you helped her pack so she could leave me, but you don't know why?" Regina said, "I didn't even ask. And it was clear that she didn't want to talk about it. I'm sure that you don't want to talk about it either, but if you plan or have any hope of fixing whatever this is, you're going to have to talk to somebody. I get it. You're a quiet, solitary man, a thinker, not much of a talker. But your silent assassin days are over, sir. You're not going to be able to sneak up on her and snatch her and make her come back over here, you know." Pop Sandy said, "What you know about the silent assassin?" Regina said, "I heard Q and LJ call you that once. And when I asked, they told me that's what they used to call you back in the day." Pop Sandy chuckled and then he said, "I'm much more comfortable listening to other people's problems than I've ever been discussing mine with anybody else. That's probably how I got in this situation in the first place. It's a lot easier to bare your soul to somebody that you know, but you don't really have to interact with on a daily basis. You know what I mean?" Regina raised one eyebrow and said, "Are we talking about an emotional affair, Pops?" Pops Andy asked, "A what?" Regina said, "An emotional affair. When you have a non-sexual relationship that involves a high level of emotional intimacy with a person who is not your partner. Pop Sandy thought about it for a minute and looked away in shame and said, and that's exactly what I got myself into. But it's over with. I swear. I ended things before it really got physical and before Bella even got wind of anything. Regina said, well, that's good to hear. But you do know that I'm an attorney, right? So I caught that before it really got physical comment. I'm all in now, so you might as well tell me everything. Pops Andy said, oh dear God, a woman and a lawyer. I'm in trouble. Regina said, I promise, you're in good hands. We listen and we don't judge. Meanwhile, Melissa is in Mom Brenda's suite. Mom Brenda has been concerned about her only granddaughter, and now she knows why. Melissa's been having dreams that she doesn't quite understand, but they've been scaring her. For the most part, they aren't logical, and their depth are far beyond her ability to comprehend. When she shares the details with Mom Brenda realizes that Melissa's ability to see is expanding in leaps and bounds, and she needs a level of guidance that Mom Brenda can't offer. She decides that she's going to have a conversation with Angela, Q, and Pastor Corey. But for now, she's going to help Melissa manage her sight the best way she knows how. She said, my mother's generation called what you have the seeing eye. Do you know what that is? Melissa said no. Mom Brenda explained it to her, and then she told her that the dream she was having sounded more like visions. Then she asked if Melissa knew the difference. And when she said no, Mom Brenda told her that dreams happen when you're asleep and are the results of your thoughts and feelings. They can be frightening, like nightmares, or they can be enjoyable, but they come from your imagination. Visions, on the other hand, can happen whether you are asleep or awake. And while dreams can sometimes be fuzzy and unclear, visions are clear and specific. And visions come from God, not from you. Then she told her, the way that you can tell the difference between a dream and a vision is that you can't control what's happening in the vision. Remember when I taught you how to change your dreams when you have a dream that's scary or disturbing? When Melissa said yes, Mom Brenda asked, can you change what happens when you are asleep and you have these visions? Melissa said, no. And I try as hard as I possibly can. I do everything that you taught me. I even pray. But when I pray, I see him. Mom Brenda said, him who? Melissa said, the man who was sitting in the big chair when you were sick in the hospital and you were in the line. Mom Brenda said, and what does he say or do when you see him? Melissa said, he smiles at me. He puts a finger to his lips and then he tells me to just watch. Mom Brenda said, you can hear his voice? Melissa said, no, but I can read his lips. It's like he shows up to tell me that he heard my prayer, but he isn't going to give me what I'm praying for because he needs me to see what's happening. Does that make sense? Mom Brenda said, it does, baby. Do you know what a sign is? When Melissa said yes, Mom Brenda said, whenever you're unsure whether your dream is a dream or a vision, try to change it, pray, and when you see him, ask him for a sign. Don't ever tell anyone what that sign is, baby. Don't write it down. Don't say it out loud. Don't share it with another soul. You understand? That sign should be a secret between you and him. Now, I know your parents have taught you not to keep secrets, especially not from them, but you can always tell God your secrets. And sometimes he'll tell you his. As you get older and stronger in your gift, he'll let you know when what he's showing you is a secret that needs to stay between you and him, and when it's something that you need to discuss with somebody else. Until you figure it out, I'll be here to help you figure it out. Okay? Melissa said, yes, ma'am. Thank you, Nana Brenda. Mom Brenda said, you're welcome, baby. And then she gave Melissa a huge hug, held her in her arms, and said, now tell me more about this dream that you had about your grandmere. I think that we may need to have a conversation with her about it.